Okay, let me go to Slack. Oh my God. My computer's going to get really slow here if I try doing both of these live streams, but I'm going to give it a shot anyways. And if it crashes, well, then it crashes. I'll have this a link. Okay, let's get back to coding here. So we have Sabrina. Okay, so sorry about that, guys. Let's get back to this. So we set up our nav bar, and if you guys can tell, if you look closely, it's not really positioned at the top like the Instagram is. So we'll need to give our nav bar some positioning. And you notice when you scroll down on the page, the nav bar stays where it is. So that we know is a fixed position. I like to keep the positioning up and top. So position fixed. And we want the top to be 0 pixels and the left 0 pixels. And so what that's going to do is that's going to lock our nav bar in at the top of our page. Sweet. Now if we look again on our nav bar, we have a border bottom. So we can go ahead and add that to our styling. And that'll be, so Instagram uses RGBA for this. So they use RGBA. And the A is pretty much like opacity. So we're not going to make it any colors. We're going to make it pretty much black and give it an opacity of 0.075. Now that's just what Instagram uses. And let's see what that does for us here. Border bottom. Oh, 1 pixel solid. Oh, okay. Okay. There we go. So we have that set up. And now if we can see, here we have 3 main sections in our nav bar. We have the logo with our Instagram, and the search bar in the center, and the icons on our right. So we could either, position everything in the center. What I'm going to do is build this from the left to the right. So Facebook. And the way we're going to do that, in our HTML, we're going to set up 3 divs. The first one, we'll give it a class of nav-left. The second one, we'll give it a div of class nav-center. And the third one, we'll give it a div of class nav-right. So it's really important to be very specific with your naming and classes in HTML and CSS, because when you guys are developers, your coworkers are going to need to understand what your code is, and having better communication is really going to help that out. Okay, if I sound spacey, guys, it's because I'm reading the messages from Slack right now. I tried to set this live stream up on YouTube, but YouTube takes 24 hours to authenticate live streamers, so I kind of missed that deadline. Okay. So we have these three. So our nav left will be this section over here. Our nav center will just be our search bar, and our nav right will be all of our icons. Okay, everything's working. Cool. Okay. So let's get this icon and this Instagram text in here. So let's all go to fontawesome.com and link up our Font Awesome to our index.html. My computer is going really slow. Okay, so if you go to their nav bar, click on How to Use. And then go down and copy the CDN that they offer for us, and go and paste that in your head. So Font Awesome. And so now we can use Font Awesome. Now if we scroll back to the top and click on icons, we'll go and search for that Instagram icon. They have so many icons on this website, it's not even funny. So thank you, Font Awesome. You are so awesome. Okay, Instagram. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Sorry about my computer, guys. I'm streaming through Facebook and Appearing right now, so it's using a lot of data, I guess the word would be. It's really working my computer. So we copy this Instagram code down here. You just hit that copy button, and we'll go back to our nav left div and paste that right in there, and below it we'll set up an H1 that says Instagram. Sweet. And let's go check that out on our page. Cool. It's showing up. It's not looking too pretty, but we'll fix that right now. One thing let's just get this out of the way. So we have these three sections on Instagram. Divs are naturally just block elements. So we can see here that they're all sitting next to each other. So we need all of our divs in our nav bar, the nav left, nav center, and nav right. We need those all to be inline block. And the way you would do that, if you wanted to tell all three of them at the same time to be inline block, we'd say nav-left, comma, dot nav-center, comma, dot nav-right. And then we do our curly braces, and we'll say display inline block. Okay. So that's how you guys can apply one property to multiple classes. So let's get working on our logo. So we know our logo is inside of our nav left class. So let's go .nav-left, and we're going to target our icon. Okay. And let's see here. Let's position. Let's work with the font size first. We'll say font size is, say, 35 pixels. Let's see what that does. Okay, makes it a little bit bigger. Now notice the Instagram icon is above the Instagram wording. So that's because our Instagram wording is in an H1, and our H1 is a block element, so it's separating itself from our eye. So let's go down here and do a nav dash left. We're going to target our H1, and we're going to say display inline block. Okay. Display inline block. Oh, geez, there's my face. Okay, hold on, sorry about that. God, you guys got me there. All right, so sorry about that. So with appear in every 20 minutes, it's going to show my face. Back to the text editor. Thank you, Sabrina, for pointing that out to me. This is my first Magic Hours, guys, and first time live streaming. So it's going to be a bit rough, but we'll get through it, and we'll definitely learn some stuff on the way. Okay. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Sabrina. So we got that set up. Now we just gave our icon and our H1 an inline block styling. So when we go back here, we see that they're next to each other. And that's kind of what we want. Let's see, let's move that whole little div over so it's in the same spot that the Instagram. So you see Instagram kind of has like a padding to their left. Let's add some padding left to our nav left, nav dash left. Okay, so that's our entire div, and we'll give it a padding left of, let's say, like 13%. Just so we can move it in and match it up with our Instagram. Now, if you go back and forth to your Instagram, let's see if it's in the same spot. Looks pretty close. Yours may be a little different than mine, so just adjust that padding left. I like to use percentages too because it's a little bit more responsive when you do a little bit more complicated styling. So let's get back to that icon. So we're made that icon an inline block element. It also needs a border. That line that we see here in the Instagram, we're just going to make that our border from our icon. And so the way we'll do that is we'll say border dash right, 1 pixel solid, and let's use, it's a shade of black, but 262626. And that's what Instagram used for their color. Okay, we'll go here. Cool. Now if you guys see, that border is there, but it's right next to the icon. We want to give it some space. So we'll add a padding right to it. And let's do like 15 pixels padding right. That should move that over for us. Okay. So it's looking good. Icon looks good. We have our border, and let's start working on that H1 and see what we got here. So we'll go to our H1. We want to separate, we kind of want to distance the H1 from the border, so we'll give it a padding left. You could give it a margin left or a padding left. I'm going to use padding left here. Padding left. And we'll keep it the same as we did with our padding right and our icon, and say 15 px. Cool. Looking good. We have different fonts. So we could go to Google Fonts and find a font. I've tried that. They don't have the same one as Instagram uses, so we're just going to use the standard font. I think we can just use cursive. Let's see if that works. Cursive, cool. So there's our font. I just use cursive. You could go to fonts or Google Fonts and find one that looks a little bit more like the Instagram font, but it's not too big of a deal right now. Now, one thing I want you guys to notice is the Instagram text is kind of centered with the icon, but on ours, the Instagram text is sitting kind of low. And so the way we'd fix that is we'd position our H1 relative to where it's at right now. Now, positioning it relative won't do anything. It keeps it in the same spot. But when we add a parameter like bottom, we'll say bottom 5 pixels. That's going to push our H1 up just a little bit so that we can get it centered. That's the way I do it, or I'm doing it right now. And it looks, if we go and we look, it looks pretty close to what Instagram has. So I think we can move on to our next little section here and do the search bar. So there's our search bar. Let's go back to our HTML. And we will enter a, let's see here. Let's enter the input. Okay, and we'll add a placeholder that says search. Go up here. Great. It's showing up right there. That's cool. Now, let's see. We want to move this search bar kind of more in the center. So let's think. We gave our nav left a padding left of 13%. So what I would like to do is say .nav-center. Okay. This is remember, this nav center is our second div that we created, and it's holding the input. And we're going to say margin left of 13%. And let's also give it a width. Oops. Let me space this up for you guys. Let's give it a width of 200 pixels. Now, why 200 pixels? Well, we go to Instagram and we use our inspector tool and hover over our search bar. It's 215 pixels wide and 28 pixels high. So we're just going to keep the same standard there. So let's see. Okay. Cool. It moved it over the way we want it to move over. All right. Now, let's style our input. We could, right now, if we wanted to, we could just say input and then start styling it, and that would totally work. But I want to be a little bit more specific. If we want to be really specific, we could say nav, which means go into the nav bar. Then we'll say .nav-center. That's saying going to the div that has that class, and then input. So we're really targeting our input right now very precisely with CSS. And this is important to know because when you're working with lots of elements and sections that are very similar, things can get mixed up. And so if you change one input, you don't want a bunch of other inputs to change. We only want this one input to be affected. And to be so specific, we'll say nav.navCenter and then input. And that will make sure that only the input in our nav center is going to be affected. So let's start styling this guy. Let's see. Let's start off with positioning him in a certain way. So we'll say position relative. Let's see here. Okay. We want to kind of move it up. We'll say bottom 10 pixels. And we'll get, oh, I forgot to give it a height. I'm sorry. So we want to give our input a width and a height. We'll just say our width is going to be 100% because we said that our div, our nav center div, is 215 pixels. We want our input to be the same length as that, so we'll say 100%, and we'll give it a height of 28 pixels, and we got that from using our inspector tool. The bottom, let me get that out of there. I'll keep that close to the position so we don't get confused. So let's see what this looks like here. Okay, it made our nav bar a little bit bigger. I'm going to take that bottom away really quick and see what we get. Okay, let's see here. Looking at them, we're going to have to, okay, so it's about the same size. One thing that looks weird is that their input tag has rounded borders. Ours doesn't, and their text is centered. So let's do that right now. Let's go ahead and first off, text align center, and what that's going to do is put our search placeholder in the center. Let's also put some padding in here of about 7 pixels. Let's see what this does for us. Okay, thing got a little bit bigger. We may not need the padding. Take that out. Okay, it looks good. What else? Let's give that border radius. So we'll do border radius 3 pixels, and that. Wait, what? Oh, we have to define our border before we can give it a radius. Let's give it a border of 1 pixel, solid, and we'll say, so after using the inspector tool, the color for the border of the search bar is DB. What a goofy name for a color. Okay. So we just gave our search bar a border, and we defined its border radius as 3 pixels. So let's see how that turns out. Cool. Looks all right. If we go back to our Instagram, we can see that the background of our input is a different color than our nav bar. So that's that nice design that Instagram has there. Very simple. So what we'll do is we'll give our background color to our input. Background color. And we'll say that it's FA, which is the same color as the background. Boom. Okay. That looks good. Oops, we're going to make our search text a little bit bigger. So font size 14 pixels. A little bit bigger. Cool. So I think that's good for the search text and the overall search bar. Now, you guys may have seen this, and I think it was the Orange Juice Project or one of the earlier weeks, getting that magnifying glass into your input. So that this is something I know I struggled with when I took the course, because it's not necessarily in your input. You just position the magnifying glass to look like it's in your input. So first of all, we need to go get that icon from Font Awesome. So we'll go back to icons, and wait for it to load. All right. Can we load? Oh, you don't want to load. Okay. Oh, there we go. Finally. And we'll say search. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys, my computer is really slow right now. Okay, search. Okay. Font's awesome. AR. Search. Okay. We'll click on this magnifying glass. All right. Scroll down, copy that code from Font Awesome. I think this might be one of the last. No, we still have a couple icons to go. Okay, cool. Copied. Go back to your HTML and go to your nav center div. And we're going to place this thing in a span and put it. Actually, no, we're just going to see what that does. Put it in a span and then put our icon in there. And what this is going to do, let's see, is going to... Alright, sweet. We have our magnifying glass on the page in the nav bar. Woohoo. Now we just need to position it so that it's sitting next to our search text. So the way we're going to do that is we'll go to our CSS. And again, we can be very specific here. I'll be less specific just to show you guys that you don't need to do the nav every single time. But let's just say we'll do nav-center span and enter that. Position relative. I love relative. I don't know. I just love positioning things relative. It's simple and it always works. We'll go. Now I'm just going to play a guessing game. We'll go left 50 pixels. Let's say 50 pixels. And then top about 10 pixels. Now, why those? Well, let's see. Our magnifying glass is in our top left. So we want it to come down. We want it to come down a little bit. So we did the top 10 px. And we want it to go right. So we would say, we would use our left property to tell it to be 50 pixels from the left. And when we see that, it starts to position it, it moves it, but we have a problem now. Our magnifying glass is showing up behind our input tag. So if we want to see it, we need to bring it forward. And the way to do that is we would use a z-index. Z-index, and you can give it any number you want as long as it's greater than the input. The input's index is just 0, so we'll give it, let's just give it 5. Z-index of 5, and it puts it in front of the input. And we still need to position it a little bit better, so we'll say 60 pixels from the left and 20 pixels from the top. A little bit more. Oh my gosh. 30 pixels from the top. Okay, too far. 25. How about 25? Okay, that's good enough. And from the left, we'll go 70 and see if that puts it next to our 65. Okay, so we're going to leave the icon there, but with Instagram, it's much smaller than our icon. So let's change that. Let's make our icon a little bit smaller, and we have to change the color of it too to match that search color. So we'll go over here, and the class that our icon has is FA search. So go ahead and copy FA-search. Go back to your CSS and put dot FA-search, targeting that class, that icon, and we'll give it a color of, let's do like 99. And we want to give it a font size. We want it to make it smaller. Font size of about, say like 10 pixels. See if that makes it smaller. Cool. Okay, so there we go. Our magnifying glass looks pretty close to the magnifying glass Instagram has. Maybe a little bit bigger. We'll make it a little bit bigger. We'll make it 12 pixels. But we need to reposition it now. Oh, back to my face. Okay, it's been 20 minutes. Thank you. Screen share. Okay. Great, now you guys know what my garage looks like. For those on Appear In. Okay. So, let's see. Let's move that magnifying glass over. I'm sorry I'm being very picky, but we're going to call it 70 pixels. And we're good. Okay, let's not touch it anymore. So that's how we do the search bar. Not so bad. Just remember when you're styling with that icon and the search icon, to use that Z index to bring it forward. And usually it's easy to use position relative to get it in the spot that you want. So next, let's go back to our HTML. And on the right side, we have all of the icons over here. So we need to go get those from Font Awesome again. And so this shouldn't be too hard. Let's all go to Font Awesome. And the ones we'll look for, I think this is navigation, heart, and user. So we'll go icons. Okay. We'll go navigation. Oh, compass. Compass would be a good thing to. Compass. Compass? No? Oh, there it is. Okay, compass. Oh, no, not that one. I want this one. Oh, wait, I can't have that one. Wait, yes, I can. Compass. All right, we'll copy that code. Go back to our nav right now. Now we're working in our nav right div. Paste the compass, and then we want to go get the heart. Go icons. You guys can probably do this a lot faster than I can right now. What can I close out? I can't really close anything out. Okay. Okay, heart. All right, we'll do this heart right here. I like that one. It's nice. Down, copy, paste that into our code, and then the last one was user or person. Try whichever one you can try. And after we finish the nav bar, we're going to take a bathroom break for 1 minute. What was it? User. Okay, we'll use this guy right here. That looks good. Close enough to the Instagram one. Okay. Copy that. Okay, sweet. Now let's get back to coding. All right, so we have all our icons in there. Now if we go back to our page, you can see that they're all showing up, which is great, and they're showing up right next to each other. They're showing up right next to each other because naturally an icon is displayed inline. So we're fortunate enough to not have to mess with the display of these icons. So if we go to our CSS, we will try and get these guys to sit more over to the right, and we want to make them a little bit bigger. Okay, now to do that, let's start by positioning our nav right div. And we can give it a margin left of 13%. And we'll give it a width. Let's see. Oh, I didn't save it. Let's see if that looks good. Okay, that's good right there. I'm going to throw an arbitrary width just to give it some sort of spacing. Okay. And then let's start working on spacing out our icons. So what I'm going to do is go like this. Now this is how we're going to select all of our icons without having to go in and do CSS styling for each class. We could either do fa-compass, comma, fa-heart, like this. We could go fa-compass. What we're going to do is we're going to say nav.nav-right, and then we're going to say icon. So that's how you target all of your icons inside of your nav right div. Okay, and so we want to space them out. So let's give each one its own margin of, we want no margin on the top. So 0 margin on top and bottom, and we want 15 pixels on the left and right. So remember, when you do shorthands for things, it always starts from top, right, bottom, left, and then the shorthand, if you want to go shorter, it's the first number is top and bottom, and the second number is right and left. Okay, and then we want to make it a little bit bigger, so we'll give them all font sizes of, let's say, like 23 pixels. We'll go back over here. Cool. Sweet. So that looks fairly close. It looks like we can move our icons over a little bit. They seem crowded. And we could change the color of them. Let's go like this. We'll go 15%. And let's give it the same color we gave our magnifying glass. So I'm going to copy the color from magnifying glass, which was #999. Save that. Okay, yeah, it looks okay. Unfortunately, our icons are not the same as Instagram's. Theirs has thinner lines, which that's probably a whole nother video on its own, just manipulating those. So we're stuck with these clunky looking icons, which is okay. It doesn't look too bad. You guys can play with the color of those as well. So I want to know how everyone is doing. If anyone has any questions, feel free to DM me in Slack right now. And if I don't hear from you guys in a minute, I'm going to continue with the next section. I'm going to go to the bathroom really quick. So if you guys have any questions, DM me on Slack right now. Okay, guys, I'm back. It was number 1, if you guys were wondering. All right. I challenge you guys to code for hours at a time. What's the longest you have coded for? I think for me, I can only do an hour at a time before I start having to stand up. Okay, so next we're going to start working on these middle sections here. Really quick, I'm just going to answer some questions on Slack. All right, I'm just making sure everything is still working. Okay, so now we're going to work on getting our image in here. If you guys have an image that you like to work with, let's see, pick an image on your phone or on your computer that you guys would like to use. We're get a picture in mind because we're going to have to resize our image. We'll just see how that goes. Okay, so back to our HTML. Let's go to our HTML. And now we're going to be working in this main section here. Specifically, our first section, we'll call it profile section. Okay. And in this profile section, we have our image right here, and then we have all of our text over here. And so the way I'm going to set this up is we will go and give our section an ID of, let's say, user profile. Okay. And the first thing we have in here is an image, so we know that's there. So let's get our image. Let's get our image up. Let's see. I'm gonna go find an image of myself somewhere in here. I think I have it in here. Copy. Now, if your image comes out all goofy and like not styled when we get through this, it may mean that you need to resize your image on an image resizer, and I could post a good website for that. So we'll go here. Oh, geez, what am I doing? Okay. So I put your image inside of your image folder. Paste. Okay. And let's go check it. Sweet. So image is going to be img/profile pic.jpg. All right. Let's see how terrible this is going to look. Ready, set, go. Okay, it's a big square. Okay. Dang, Alex, I'm sorry. Okay. So we got our picture there. Styling, if you guys have your picture, you could set a width and a height to it. We're going to have to manipulate these things to make it kind of look all right. Let's go back to our CSS down here, and we will, let's see, let's style, you know what, one thing I like to do is I like to see my div. So what we're going to do is we're going to do ID user profile, and I'm just doing this so I can see where my div is. We're going to give it a border of 1px solid, and we're going to say red. Now we're going to delete this later, but I just want to see where my div is. Okay, so I can see where my div is right now. It's fairly large, don't need to be that big. And I want to push it down a little bit from the top. So just remember, we're going to delete that border later on. So let's position our div relative. We'll go top 140 pixels. Let's see if that moves it down. I'm going to delete my image right now just so I don't have to keep looking at that obnoxious yellow. Okay. Oh, great. Then it goes away. Well, then let's give our div a height. We'll say height of 152 pixels. Okay. Who asked me that? Okay. So Sabrina, we need a border before border radius, because our input did not have a border, and we wanted to kind of give that rounded border effect. So let me. we want to give an input a border, then so Sabrina, the reason we need to have a border before our border radius is because our border radius relies on our border. So if we have no border, we can't really give it a radius of anything. So that's why we put our border first, and then we put our border radius. But I don't think it matters which order it's in, so long as you just have a border. So if we go there, I just switch mine around, and it still works. But it doesn't matter if the border is before the border radius or the border radius is before the border. But as long as, oh, there's my face again. As long as you have a border and a border radius together. Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay. So, we have our div here that's going to be holding our profile picture and our text. And it's pretty large right now, so we're styling it. I'm giving it a red border just so that we could see where this div is. We're going to delete that red border later, though. So, so we were down here. We gave it that border red, positioned it relative, and we positioned it 140 pixels from the top, just to give us some spacing in between our divs from our nav bar. And I set it as a height of 152 pixels because I use the inspector tool on Instagram to find that height. We don't need it to be 100%, so I'm going to cut that down a little bit, make it 80%. And now notice this. So here's something that is fun to use. So see, we just cut down our border from 100%, or our div from 100% to 80%, but it's not centered. And I want to center this, but I don't feel like using padding and margin. So, well, what I could do is I could use margin auto, and that automatically centers it in the page. So that's a little trick that I'm sure you guys all know, but I like to emphasize that because it's really useful. All right, and I think I like the way this box looks right now. Let's get our picture set up. So back to our HTML, and if you guys have an image, put an image tag inside our section under user profile, and we use image path and then target our profile-pic JPEG. You can name it whatever you want, and then that's going to show up in here. Now it's really big, and I have an S that doesn't need to be there. It's really big, doesn't fit, and we need to work on that now. So I'm going to give our image a class. So here's another way we could select what we want to select. We'll say user pick. Okay, so we just gave our image a class so that we can start styling it. I did not have to do that. What we could have used, we could also say, hashtag user profile img, and that would suffice for targeting our image, but I want to give it a class right now. So we're going to get user pick, give it a class, and we'll give our pick the same height that we gave the user profile div, which is 152 pixels. And we'll give it the same width because we want it to be a square. And this is how we're going to make a circle out of an image. Since we're not using Bootstrap, Bootstrap has a built-in class that'll make your image a circle, but we're going to do it all on our own. Okay, so we get our height and our width set up. Cool, same size as our div now. Now, the way to make your image a circle is by giving it a border radius. So now this is where it may sound confusing, because we don't have a border yet, but let's see if this works. So border radius is 50%. And that works. Even though we don't have a border, it works. And that is something, the reason behind that, I think, is because just of the type of element. So images kind of react differently to borders than input tags. So I could see, Sabrina, where that was a little confusing and how that can get a little mixed up. But that is something I could look into more onto why the border radius works for our image without a border, but not on our input. We are going to end up giving this image a border. We don't really need to, but if you go to Instagram's website and you zoom in, there's like a tiny border right there, and so I figured, why not? Let's just give it a border. We'll stick to the Instagram site as best as we can. So we'll give it a border of, no, we don't want border radius, we want border of, let's say 1 pixel solid, RGBA. So I don't know if everyone's using a Mac or a PC, but I'm going to show you a cool trick. If you have a Mac, you can go into your Launchpad, if Launchpad would work, and go into Other, and then Digital Color Meter allows you to find the colors of anything on your screen. So the color of my background is 254-220-98. I'm going to try and match my border to be similar to that. So let me go over here and we'll do RGBA, and let's say it was 153. This is gonna be like a light shade of gray. 3.5. So this color I just kind of made up on my own. It's like a light gray, but it looks decent enough with the picture that you can kind of notice it and you kind of can't, but it's not the same as Instagram. It's okay though, it works. Okay, so we got our image down. Let's move our image over a bit, because the way we can see where to position our image is based on where the Instagram logo and text is. So on the Instagram site, our image is like slightly centered kind of to the right of our Instagram text. We're going to do the same on ours. So we can either give our image some margin, or we could put some padding in our actual div. So I'm going to put padding in this user profile ID. We'll say padding left 7%. And that kind of moves, I don't like that. Nope, down like that. Not doing it that way. We're going to give some margin left to our image. 7% of it. And we'll see if that, cool. So it shifted our image over a little bit. Let's go a little bit more. Let's go like maybe 9%. Okay, cool, that's good, right where it's at. Now, let's set up our section with our profile name and our edit button. So let's go back to our HTML. If anyone is having trouble with their images right now, let me know on Slack before we move on. But only major problems, like if it's totally not working, but if your image is kind of funky, but it's still a circle and in the right spot, just leave it for now, and we can figure it out later. Okay, so let's get to making our profile section. So let's go to our HTML, and inside of our section, profile section, we'll go underneath our image, and right here we're going to want to, sorry about that, we're going to want to set up another div now. So let's space them out a little bit. We'll go div, and we'll give it a class of user-info. So we'll give it a class of user info. And inside there, we have 3 rows of kind of content. We have our name and our buttons, and then we have our posts and followers, and we have our little tagline about us. So we'll set that up. We'll give each one its own div. We'll give each row its own div. So we'll do div class row-1, then we'll go div class row-2, and then we'll go div, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible typer, div class row-3. Okay. So those guys are all set up. And let's just before we get to CSS and all that, let's actually get some content in there in our row 1. So I'm going to separate these guys. We'll go row 1, and we want an H1 to say our username, which is, mine is Maucus9. That sucks, but I gotta get a better one. I'm just not smart enough to figure one out. Oh my god. Maucus9. And then after that, we want a button. So, button that says edit profile. And then below that, we have an icon. Let's check this out. Our icon is actually a button, so when we click on it, something happens, right? So in order for it to be a button and an icon, we're going to set up an A tag. We're not going to make it go anywhere, but we'll set up our icon inside of that A tag, so that if this was a functioning website that we were making, it could take you to that link. Instead of going to FontAwesome, I'm just going to tell you guys what the code is. It's going to be an I. Class for that icon is FAS FA -cog, and then that's it. We'll go, and I got that from FontAwesome, so let's see what this looks like. Whoa, Why do we have so many cogs? What happened? I don't know. Anyways, something is weird, but we can figure it out. Let's, oh, you know why? Because I didn't close my iTag. That's why. Wow, that freaked me out. Okay, there we go. Again, that whole section is not inside of our div because we have not styled our divs yet, our user profile div. So we have user info we need to style, and we have row 1 that we need to style. So let's go do that right now. Go to our CSS, and we're going to set up our .user info. Remember, that's the div that's holding all of our rows. That's the one with the red. Oh, no, not the one with the red, but the one that's going to be next to the image. So we want him to be display inline block, inline block. We'll give him a height of 100% and a width. We'll just give him a width of like 50% of our overall div because there's not that much, doesn't take up that much space. So we'll just say 50%. And let's give it a border, right? I'm going to give it a temporary border. Just so we can see where it's at. Solid blue. Okay, 1 second. I have. Yes, we will do that. Okay. So, boom, we got our div, our new div, our user info div, all set up, but something really weird just happened, and this is when you have to go to W3 Schools or go to Google. But why isn't it sitting inside of our div, and why is it halfway positioned like that? It doesn't make any sense. You'd expect it to just be inside of your div. Now, the reason for why it's like that, I'm not 100% sure yet, but I know how to fix it. And so I looked up on W3 Schools, what the heck? Why is this happening? And one thing we could do to fix this is we can give our div a vertical align property of top. Now let's see if that fixes it. That puts our div in the position that we want it to. Because for some reason, which I'm not sure yet on why, it moves down like that. But to fix it, we could use vertical align, and that gives us, you can also position it relative and like put a negative top, which would also move your entire div up, but we don't have to worry about that. So let's scoot that guy over from our picture. We'll give it a margin left of about 10%. 10%. Let's see how that looks. Okay, looks pretty good. Somewhat lined up, same distance apart from the image. Cool. Now we'll get to styling and figuring out everything in our row 1 class. Okay. So we have our row 1 with our H1, our button, and our A-link. Now I'm going to get specific again, just to kind of show you guys the different ways to select CSS and HTML, to select HTML elements with CSS. So we're going to get really specific. We're going to say, because we're in our section, our ID is user profile. Inside user profile, we have our user pick and our user info. Inside user info, we have our row 1. Inside row 1, we have our H1 button, blah, 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 blah. So let's say user ID user profile space dot user dash info. So the space just means go into the next class. So we're saying from the ID of user profile, go into the user info. And then from the user info, we want to go into row 1 dot row dash 1. Okay. And we're just going to go straight and style our H1. So we could just give our H1 a class. We could just say dot row dash 1, just like this. We could just say that. This would totally work too, but I'm going to be very specific here. And it's good practice to do this, especially when you have a much larger application. So one thing that's happening is our name and our button and our A-link are not sitting next to each other, and that's because our H1 is a block element. So let's give him an inline block display. We'll give him a font size of 32 pixels. And let's just see what that looks like. Cool, so everything's lined up straight now. It's definitely needs some thickness taken away from it. We'll say font, back to my face, damn it. Thank you for that. Okay, so I left off, we got this aligned by using a display inline block for our H1. We'll give it a font size, and we're going to give it a font weight as well. We're going to thin it down, so remember, standard I think is like 500, we'll say 300 for our font weight. Cool. Now notice the difference between the type of text that we are dealing with here. This is serif, I believe, because it has those little edges on the ends of the K and the U, and here they don't have that. It's just, more modern looking. So I think we want to give it a font family of serif. Serif. I'm pretty sure it's serif or it's sans serif. Sans serif. Sorry, it's sans serif. Sans serif. Okay, cool, and that gives us that kind of clean, modern looking look. Okay, we got that set up there. We want to space that button over from our H1, so we can give a margin right of about, let's say, just 5% or something. So that moves over our button. And that's pretty much good for the H1. Now, I forgot to do it, but I usually like to put comments in to say what this is, or just something to remind us when we're searching through row 1. I won't do it right now, but don't forget to comment your code, guys. So we'll say Malchus, just so we know. And this one's going to be edit profile button. I should have been doing this the entire time, but I kind of forgot. So let's style our button now. We're going to use the same really specific styling to target that button. We'll say user dash profile. Remember, it's an ID. Dot user dash info dash or dot row dash one button. And that ensures that only that button is going to get affected. First thing we should do here, let's make our button bigger. Let's give it a height. A height of, let's say 30 pixels. See what that does. Okay, it's a little bit bigger. Definitely want to give it some width. So we'll see. Okay. So there we go. We'll give it some padding. So yeah. Height. Let's give it some padding on the left and the right. So we'll go padding. We want the padding on the top and the bottom of the button to be the same, but we want to just spread out that the sides. So we can say 0px for the top and bottom, and we can do like 24 pixels on the left and right. Now let's see what that does. And that makes our button a little bit bigger. Okay, it's still a really ugly button, and we don't like ugly buttons. So let's give it a background. I think it's transparent. If we go in here, yeah. So the background of our button, there is no background. It's transparent. So we'll go background color transparent, and that will make it look a lot cleaner. Then we're just going to kind of style it up now, and let's give it a border of 1 pixel solid, hashtag db. That was the same color as our border from our input. We'll give the text inside a color of hashtag 262626. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, little bit cleaner. It has that nice border on there now. Let's below our border, let's give it a border radius of 3 pixels. I think 3 pixels is what we used on our input. We'll go back here. Cool. Give it a little bit of a border, just like the one on Instagram. We want our text to be a little bit bolder too. So let's work on our text now. We'll say font size 14 pixels. Font weight will be 500. And let's see how that looks. Cool. So our button is looking pretty good. I don't know if you guys can notice this, but on ours, our button's bottom border is sitting below our H1. So that's not clean. We don't on Instagram's, the bottom of the bottom border is aligned with the bottom of the H1. So we want to move our button up just a little bit. And to do that, we're just going to position it relative. And I'm going to try something here. We're going to say bottom 5 pixels and see if that moves it up. And it does. Cool. So it moves it up. And that looks like that's it for our button. It's pretty close to Instagram's. Yeah, we could keep playing with it, but I think that'll be okay for now. All right. Next, we're going to work on that settings icon. So let's do that. Let's say settings icon, and that guy, same, we're going to keep it super specific. User dash profile that user dash info dot row dash 1, and it's inside of an A link. Remember that. And then we're going to say dot fa dash cog. Now I know that looks a lot, guys. That's a lot of stuff just to target our FA cog. Again, we could just be writing it like that. If this works exactly the same, just FA cog, but I want to be really specific here and write out the really targeting very precisely in our entire document that it's just that FA cog. Because if we had a bunch of different of those icons throughout our page, they'd all be affected right now, and we may not want that. So we're just going to target that one. If you guys have questions on that, let me know. So one thing I noticed is, so we'll go color of our cog. It's like, I can't tell if my eyes are messed up, but it looks purple. Might be black. We'll just give it that hashtag 262626 color. We want to move it over from the button, so we'll give it a margin left of like 3%. And we want to make it a little bit bigger, so we'll go font size. I'm just going to go 20 pixels. I don't know how that's going to come out though. Okay, cool. So we got that color, we got that spacing. It's still kind of small, and it's not the same as the Instagram, but we'll go 30 pixels. Cool, and that looks decent enough. Yeah, I couldn't find this icon that Instagram used on Font Awesome, so we're just going to use the one we have. It's ugly, but whatever. Cool, so that's the first row. Let's move on to the second row. Okay, second row should be pretty straightforward. So what do we have in our second row? Row 2, we have our posts. So notice that the numbers are a little bit more bold than the posts and the followers in the following text. So that's something we're going to have to take into account when we're writing our HTML. And what we're going to do here is, let's go to our class of row 2 inside that div, and we'll do an H5. And in that H5, we'll do a span, and in the span we'll do our numbers. So the first number is the number of posts, so 101 will be my first number. And then after the span, we'll say space posts. Cool. All right, Control save. And then we'll go do the second line, so H5, span. My second number is 257, and after that it was followers. Cool. And after that, H5, we have our span, and my number was 372, and following. Okay. Let's go here, see how it looks. All right, it looks terrible. That's okay though, because we know how to use CSS, and one thing I just noticed is that followers and following are actually buttons. or they're actually A-links. So let's put that in our code, just because all we need to do is change our H5 to an A tag for those guys, because those are actually links, but they're not going to go anywhere right now. But if you guys actually wanted to set this up and like make an exact replica of Instagram's login page, you guys could do that and then have your friends log on to your page, and you could get their password and username, and then you could hack them. But I don't suggest doing that. But hey, that would be a funny April Fool's joke. So don't do that, please. All right, so we changed those H5s to A-links. Let's go back. Oh, no, not this one. Let's go back to our thing. Okay, we got everything there. We just need to style it up now. So let's go back into our CSS, and we'll go down. All right, so now we're going to target row 2, and we'll say hashtag user profile dash use or dot user info dot row dash 2. We'll just give that a padding top for right now of like 2%, because it's all goofy. Then we'd like to change this initial H5 here. That's a block element. That's why it's not all aligned nicely. So let's copy this line of code, paste that there, and we'll say H5, and we'll say display inline block, and what that'll do is get everything on the same page. All right. So font weight. We'll give it what kind of text is it? It is sans serif. Remember, it's sans serif. So we'll go font family sans serif. Okay. And we'll give it a font weight of 500 pixels, or 500. All right, let's see how that looks. Okay, for some reason it's way down at the bottom, which is totally fine for now, but we definitely want to style this guy up. So let's look at our inspector and see why. Okay, so it has H5 has some margin on it. That H1 has some margin, so that's why we have this huge gap in between our rows. So what we can do here is we'll just go we can do it right here. We'll say row 2 gets margin, or was it our margin? Our H1 has that margin. So our H1, we need to go back up to that H1 and say we want to put this margin before our margin, right? Margin 0 pixels. And so what that's going to do is that should move our row 2 up, because that natural margin from the H1 was pushing our row 2 down. So let's see that spacing's okay. We can make make that text a little bit bigger. So let's do that. We'll do that down here. So the text and everything is the same throughout the A tags and the H5. So let's target. Now here's the cool trick. So we're going to target our H5 and comma, so it'd be comma, our A tags to give them all the same styling. So I can actually delete this styling up here. I didn't really need it. You guys don't need to delete that. So we'll go font size of 17 pixels. Color, we'll do hashtag 262626. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, cool. Oh, that's looking a little funny. H1's a little bit bigger. That's okay. We can style everything up. But one thing I want to focus on right now is spacing out our each thing. So let's just give our H5s and all of our A's a padding. So we'll go padding right, and we'll do about 8%. Okay. Okay, cool, and that spaces everything out. Our H5 is pretty ugly right now. We're gonna give it a font weight of like 500. Cool, everything's looking the same. Let's make them a little bit bigger. We'll go 18 pixels, and we'll give it a font family of sans serif. Okay. All right. Now I want to move them up a little bit. So I want to move this row, our row 2, up a tad bit. And so to do that, let's see what's keeping it from going up. It's that margin from that H5. So I'm going to go in here and put our margin on our H5 and set it to none. You can set it to none or 0. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. So I hope we still got we have everyone here. Okay. Let's keep going here. Okay. So what did we just do? We want to get rid of that margin from that H5. Our div row 2 looks like it has some pad. So where's that H5? We're going to go 0px. See if that does it. There we go. Okay, cool. So margin none didn't work. Margin 0px worked. Spacing is okay. Looks good. I think we could give a little bit of spacing on our row 2. We'll give that padding top 3%, just to do that. Okay, so now remember on our posts that 101, that 257, and 372 are a little bit bolder than the text itself. So with that, we're going to want to target those spans in our HTML. So the way we can do that is, we're just going to call row 2 and then span. So let's go down here. We'll do all of this. Just because we're being really picky and being really precise, row 2, span. We'll say font weight is going to be like 600. Go back here. Bam. And so we got all those numbers bolded now. Okay. Almost done with this section. I'm really excited that we're almost done with this section, because then we'll be almost done with everything after that. And let's see here. So row 3. Let's go start our row 3 in our index. This row, it seems that we only really could just put a paragraph tag as our little tagline. So why don't we just do that? We'll go put a P in here, and because our name Marcus is bold, we'll do a span. I'll do Marcus space, and then in here we'll put the little tagline, coloring outside the lines. Outside. Oh geez. I should say spelling outside the lines. Okay. Coloring outside the lines. Like. Okay. Cool. If you guys have emojis, I don't know how you would put that in, but that would be a good project to figure out how to, I guess you just put them in as images or icons. I don't know. All right, so we have that row 3 paragraph in there. Yip-de-doo. Cool. It's not being weirdly styled. So let's just go into our CSS and go ahead and just say user dash. So we don't have to do that whole, let's just do row dash 3. We won't be picky this time. We'll just keep it very simple. We'll just keep it, normal. As long as you guys understand that there are different ways to select elements. So we go to our row 3, and let's style this guy. So we'll go row 3, P, sorry about that. And we'll go in here and we'll give it a font size. I think the font that we used, font size, was 17 pixels. And the color we used was hashtag 262626. And then the font weight of our text is a little thinner. It's just kind of normal. We'll give it 400. Let's just see how that looks. Cool, made it a little bit bigger. Forgot we have to give that font family of sans serif. So another way because all of our text kind of has the same styling, you could set up one class and put it on all of your your posts, your followers, your following, markers, coloring outside the lines. You could make a class, put it on all of those, and then style it, because we use the same styling for all of them. It was just the same font size, the same font family, the same color. So eventually, as you guys grow as developers, you'll learn how to condense your code and use special methods to kind of plan out and style everything. It's definitely something, I know you guys are busy with coding and learning and working on your portfolios and projects, but it's definitely something to look into. Just search, coding guidelines for CSS and HTML, and those will be guidelines that Codify uses, but also beyond Codify. So there's guidelines that Apple uses, there's guidelines that Google uses, and just kind of seeing what's out there will allow you guys to kind of enhance your code and make it into the way that coders right now who are working at companies code like. So I think that's definitely something to look into. I know I have to do that more. If you could tell, I don't really have like a specific order of things, but we could do a magic hour on really like making some really organized, well thought out code, and that would really help shine on your GitHub too. So when people who are hiring you, they go into your GitHub and look at your code, and they see that it's really well organized, that looks really good to them, and it shows that you know what you're doing. So we have, all right, back to our everything. So we got that, everything's looking good. We just need to kind of bold up our name. And to bold up the name, I think we gave it a span. Yep, span. We'll do row 3 dot row dash 3 p span. And we'll say font weight 600. Let's see if that does it. Cool. That did it. That looks like all we really need. We could space out that last line a little bit more. Where would we do that? We do our P. We'll give it a margin top. Margin top of like 2%. Oh, no. That was worse. We'll go 5% then. We'll go 6%. 5% is better. Okay. So we'll give that just a little bit of spacing. And now we'll go back and we will take out those red and blue borders that we don't need. So let's see. We had one of those borders was on user info. So we'll take him out. And the other was on, the red border was on the user profile, the ID. We'll take that out. And bam, we have that section all looking good. One thing that's, so our edit profile button, we get a cursor, our pointer guy on the button. And when we hover over our Instagram up here, and all these icons, I think the icons are fine because they're A-links, but we need our cursor to hover like that on our button and on our Instagram text up top. Right now it does not do that. So what we'll do, we'll just say hover effects. Now I should have done the one for the Instagram much earlier, but it's okay. So we want this thing to hover up here. So remember, let's try and figure out, where was that? That was our nav. That was our nav left. So what we can do is go back up to your nav left section, and at the end of your nav left h1, we'll go .nav dash left. We'll do h1, comma. I think it would be h1 comma I, and then hover. And we'll say cursor pointer. And let's see if that does it. So yeah, now when you hover over those two icons, you get the little hand, the pointer guy. And we'll want to do the same for our button. I'm just going to do them in the same section, forget that little piece. So where was our button we had? We go edit profile button. Below that we'll go, we can do this whole thing. Just copy that, paste it, and then do your semicolon, hover, and go inside there. And we'll say cursor pointer. Cool, and now that works too. Okay, so on to the next section. I'll give everybody, let's do like a minute break. I'm gonna go get some water really quick. And when I come back, we will start the third and the final section. And it is probably gonna be the quickest section because once we set up our images, we're pretty much finished. So give me about 2 minutes and I'll be back, and we can get started on the next section. Okay guys, I'm back. Got some water. My next magic hour I would like to do in person because I feel like it's much easier in person, and we could all talk to each other and ask questions. I don't know if you guys have ever done a live video, but it just like I feel like I'm sitting here talking to myself, which I do normally, but it's weirder when people are watching. Okay, so let's get this last section all finished up here. So, all right, let's look at what we got here. We have our third section, and we have this thin little line right there. There's several ways you can make that line. We could enter an HR tag. If you guys have ever used that, HR is just like the little line you would input. But we are gonna do it differently. Let's set up this section in HTML. So let's go to our index.html, and we have our new section here. We'll call this posts section. Okay. And we'll give it an ID of posts. Sweet. All right. So in there, let's make this little I mean, what would you call this? Let's a little link section right at the top. So we'll write those in here. We'll go. Let's give it a div. Oh, not Dave. What? Div. And we'll give that a class of, let's say, post headings. Again, remember when you guys are naming classes and IDs, make sure they're really specific. Like so, remember how I did row 1, row 2, row 3? that is not specific enough for industry standards. You'd probably, I don't know, want to do it a little more specific. Because say you were looking through the CSS and you saw row 1, row 2, row 3, you just think, what the hell are row 1, row 2, row 3? So that's why we kind of like target everything using our ID and then our class and then our row and our button so that we could find exactly where, exactly what we're looking for. Okay, so this is going to be a div. Our section is this entire section. It's the post, the IGTV, the saved, and all of our pictures. And then the post heading is going to be the post, the IGT, and the saved little icons. And for that, let's just go ahead and get the HTML in there, and we'll style it after. So we'll do an H5 with an icon, with a class. Remember, I went to Font Awesome to get this class. It is FAS, or FAS, sorry, FA dash TH, whatever that is, but that's the little grid-looking thing there. And after that icon, we need to close that icon and type in posts in capital letters. Cool. Below that, we have our H5 that just says, oh my lord, H5 that just says IGTV in capitals. And below that, we have our H5 with an icon and a class. And the class for the little, oops, I missed an icon for the IGTV. I'm sorry. Oh, I did miss it. Oh, I missed it because they don't have that one. So we're just going to do IGTV. Okay. Yeah, they don't have that. I don't even know what that thing is. A TV, I guess. I kind of want to go look for it now. All right. So the post for the saved bookmark save icon is going to be FAR FA dash bookmark, and let's close that I tag, and we'll put in saved right there. Okay. Yes. Sweet. Did I just save that? I did just save that. Get it out of there. Go away. Okay, so we have that set in there. Let's go and set that up. And let's see what that looks like. Cool. It's totally not where we want it. But that's cool because we know how to use CSS. So let's first start off by styling our ID that we set up for the post. So we'll say our post ID, post. Let's see where this thing is, because I like to always just see where my divs are when they're created. 1px solid, let's do purple. And then we're going to delete that after, so just know we'll delete it. Cool, it's over there. That's a huge div. We don't want it there. So now we know where our div is at. Let's position this thing. We can position it relative from where it is, right? So it shows up right there. And we're going to position it a little further down from there. So we'll say position relative back on me. Damn it. Oh, 20 minutes goes by pretty fast. Okay, sure. Okay. Cool. Okay, so our ID, our div with the ID post is showing up in the most weird spot because computers are dumb. And we want to tell that div to move down a little bit from where it is right now. So we positioned it relative, and we'll say from the top, go down 182 pixels. And that's going to move it down to right here. Now we could see, compare the spacing from our picture to that line, and it looks like, we can style it later on, but we could go down a little bit more or less. We'll see once we get styling here. Okay, so we went down from the top. We'll give it a width of, let's say, like 80%, which is what the same width as our user info div was. Margin, well, margin auto, because we want it to be centered. Let's see what that does for us. Okay, cool. And then we are going to get rid of this purple border now, but we do need a border, this line right here. We're going to make this line, we're just going to make that the top border of our post ID div. So let's just go ahead and do a border 1px solid, and we'll do RGB. And again, I got this color from using my inspector on the Instagram page. I'm sure you guys know how to do that. You guys can do that. Let's go 239, 239, 239. Yay. Okay. Oh, so I accidentally said border. I just want border top. Silly mistakes. All right, so we have that border set up. Now let's go ahead and style that div we created that holds all of our icons, our posts, IGTV, and our saved. So we'll go style that. That was posts headings. All right. Command V, post headings. Oh, post headings or post heading? Post headings. Post headings. Say that 3 times fast. Okay. So we'll do, right now we have our content to our left. Let's get that centered. So we'll do text align center, and that puts it all there. And because we're using H5s are always, they're naturally block elements. We got to do our display inline block, and that will, display inline. What's going on? Okay. Wait, what's going on here? What? Oh, I'm targeting the wrong element. Remember that we're the post headings is the div. It's not the actual content. We're gonna want to make each one of those inline block. Sorry about that. Hope that's not too confusing. Anyways, let's give this thing a width of like 90%. This doesn't really important, it's not too important, but so this margin is going to center our entire div. If we could put a border around here, 1px. that's our div, right? So that's our post headings div. Text align center just makes the contents centered. But if you want to center the entire div, we do the whole auto and that thing. Cool. So we'll get rid of that blue border. And that's pretty much it for centering that element. Now we want to style these H5s, right? So we'll just go in and we're going to style all of them at once. And we'll do hashtag posts. Then we'll do dot posts headings and H5. And they're all block elements right now, so let's turn those guys into inline block. Okay, cool, they're all inline block. They're all super close to each other, so we need to space them out a little bit. Let's give them a margin right. Let's give it margin right like 5%. See what that looks like. Cool, cool. They're spaced out nicely. Let's go to the Instagram website and see if they're fairly close. Yeah, they don't look too bad. They look pretty close to that. What else can we do to it? We'll give it a font size. Font size of 13 pixels. We'll give it a font weight. If you notice, the font weight was a little big on there. Hopefully this will tone it down. All right. Okay, it did. We still have that these guys are really close to each other. We could just go and put a space before each. So we put a space before post and a space before saved. And that will space out our icons from our text because, without having to do padding or margin, that's a pretty straightforward fix. And if you can tell on Instagram, their lettering is kind of spaced out a little bit more than ours. So if we want to space our letters out, one thing we can do, we'll go back to our H5. We'll do letter spacing, and we'll just say like 1px. Start small because this thing does tend to freak out. So it goes a little bit more space. The letters are spaced more, and that looks fine. You could go more than that, but it really starts to space out once you go past 1px. Let's give it the font because it has a different font, right? Font family of sans serif. Jeez. Okay. Cool. Okay, now let's see how far it looks like we can move our H5s up a little bit, a little closer to that line, to the top border. So let's just set like margin top like 0px and see if that moves it up a little bit. It does. Okay. Well, let's just say margin top. Oh, so here's one thing. Let's stop one minute. Let's go to our Instagram page. Now on our posts, we have this little line up top. So in order for us to get that there, we can use our border top for that H5, and we can put some padding in to space the words down. So let me show you how we'll do this. So with a margin of 0px, that's the wrong page. Now I'm getting confused which is actually Instagram or not. Oh, what happened? I'm sorry, margin top. Okay, margin top pulls our words up to that top border. And now we want to target our first H5. So here's some really cool selector property that we're going to do. So we have 3 H5s, but we only want to manipulate that first H5. So what we're going to do is we will go in here and copy paste that. And we're going to say posts, headings, H5. Then we're going to do H5, nth dash child 1. Okay. So what this little line of code here is saying, go to your first H5, your very first one inside your post headings class. And then we're going to give that a border top of 1px solid, solid, hashtag 262626. Cool. Now let's see if that gives it that border. All right, so it's pretty much right on it. Let's go back to our H5s, our CSS where it targets all the H5s, and we'll give it a padding top of about 2%. So when you use padding, the top of the top of your H5 stays in the same spot, but it moves the text down. So just like this. Bam. So now we get that effect on just our posts. And the way we did that is we kept the margin 0, the margin top was 0, and then we added padding to space all of our posts, IGTV, and our save. We spaced all those down with our padding, and then we targeted our first H5 with our nth child 1 and gave it a border top so that we could give it that effect of that Instagram has. Now, we're going to use that method again here. If you notice in Instagram, the IGTV and the saved are slightly different color than posts. So we are going to do that to ours. And one thing I'm noticing right now is our font weight is a little thin. So let's just add our font weight to like 600 and see if we can get it a little bit thicker. Ugh, it's so ugly. We can leave it, but it looks ugly. You know, let's just change it back to 500. So, change it back to 500. Now let's change the color of the IGTV and that's saved. So what we'll do this little code, post headings, H5. Okay, now check this out. You guys are gonna love this. So we go H5, do our nth child, nth dash child 2, and then comma, and this whole line of code again but we're going to do, instead of 2, we'll do 3. So we're saying post headings post H5, the nth child is number 2, which is our second H5. And then we're saying the same thing, go into our post, blah, 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 and the child number 3. So this is selecting our second and our third H5s in that div. And we just want to change the color of it to more of a gray color. And that'll just be that color. And let's see if that works. Boom. Cool. We are almost finished, guys. Last part now is going to be putting our images in, and after that we will pretty much be finished. So you can use the same image. Let's see where we're at on appearing. Cool. You can use the same image over and over. I need to go get some images right now, so everyone go on your computer and get one image or get multiple images, however many you want. Let me go look for an image here. Let's see. Post. We'll just do all these guys. Okay. Go back into your folder, your Instagram PSD folder. Go into your images and paste the image that you want. I'm gonna do different images just because I have them and I want it to look kind of different. I don't want it to be the same image, but you guys can put different images into, just however you guys want. Okay, so I got my images inside of my image folder. And if we go to Sublime, we can see that they all show up now. So, last step here is right below our post headings div, we're going to want to add a div that's going to contain all of these images or postings. So, we'll say div, give it a class of postings. We'll say image dash postings. Or we should, that's confusing. Image postings? Well, they're just postings. Well, they're just images. What are they? Image postings. All right. Image, img. So, let's just put them all in, and we'll do 6 of these. Okay? So this might take a few minutes, but go ahead and 4, 5, we'll do 6 images. Go ahead and put in the correct path to get your images. So mine is img slash berries.jpg. Second one is ice plant jpg. Oh, whoa. Image slash jpg. That's fine. Image slash light jpg. Remember, you guys have different images and different paths than I do, so this should not look the same. img slash paint dot jpg img. So say we had a folder in our images folder called like postings. Your path would be different than just image and then your image path. It would be image folder and then like postings folder and then slash your actual picture. But here we have all of our pictures directly inside of our image folder, so we don't need to have that second folder. But just remember, guys, when you navigate in file paths, to remember the slash means to go into a folder, and a slash means to go grab your your image or your file. And a dot dot means to get out of your directory. Oh, I think this guy just stopped in it. Aha. Okay. So we'll do our image slash your key dot jpg. Okay. If you guys have all your images in, awesome. I'm gonna go to the page and just see how obnoxious it's gonna look because nothing is styled yet. So we have some just pictures are huge. They're just the actual size that they are. That would be a cool background of something. So yeah, so let's go to CSS and finish this up. Now, if we had Bootstrap, we could do this really easy, but it's not gonna be that hard. Okay, so let's go to your CSS now, and this is not gonna be too much work. Let's go down here and we'll say postings or image postings. Yeah, image postings. That's our div that holds all of our images. So we'll give him a width of 100% and text align center. Okay. What does that do? Doesn't really do anything yet because we haven't targeted our images. So if we target our images, image postings dot or space image, we'll give each image, now we're going to style each image so that we can make them all the same size. We'll give it a height of 293 pixels. Now what I did was I went to Instagram's website, I got my inspector tool, scroll down to the images, hover over one, and you could see in the black box above the picture, it's 293 times 293. That's the length times the height. So we're going to use those. So height is going to be that, and the width is going to be 293 pixels. So that's that. Okay, let's go to ours. And images are luckily styled inline, so we don't need to worry about them taking up entire space, but our images are all showing up in a perfect grid. Let's see, I'll show you guys. We'll give this a border. Our image postings is the box that our images are all in, so let's give it a border of like 5 pixels. Solid red, just so you guys can see where it's at. So you see that's the box that all of our images are in, and it's going to take a long time to load because the images are like full size, like gigabytes. So I'm going to delete that border. Just was doing that to show you guys. All we have to do now is space out our images. We'll just give each one like a margin of 1%, and let's see what that does. And that's it. If it would load. Oh, So, one thing I just noticed. When we scroll, for some reason our image and our profile section, everything goes above and in front of our nav bar. Now, that is not what it's like on Instagram's website. On Instagram, everything goes beneath the nav bar. So we need to fix that. And one way we can fix this, see how it's going in front of it? One way to fix this is we need to go up to our nav tag or nav bar and give it a Z index. So we'll say Z index, just like we did with the search icon. We'll give it like 20. And that's greater than what the images and the image section and the profile section is. So it will be in front of the postings. So there we go, guys. If you guys have any questions, DM me on Slack. This was my first Magic Hours, so it was a little rough on setting everything up. I wanted to do this through YouTube live stream, but you need 24 hours to be authenticated with YouTube, and I signed up last night. So I had to rely on Facebook, and some people didn't have Facebook, so that's why I created the Appear In app so that people without Facebook could see, but Appear In only lets like 3 or 4 people in at one time. So throughout this Magic Hours, we had a bunch of people trying to get on to Appear In who didn't have Facebook, but Appear In was full. So I'm really sorry to those people who did not get to see this Magic Hours because of that. I will post this Magic Hours video in Slack for you guys to go over, and I will post my code on GitHub so that you guys can go, and I'll post that link to GitHub so you guys can see the code. But PSDs are really good practice to familiarize and become experts at CSS and HTML. And, you know, later on when you guys are doing JavaScript, having those solid foundations in CS and HTML will make JavaScript a lot easier to use as well. So I hope everyone enjoyed the Magic Hours, and if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Slack, and I look forward to another Magic Hours in the near future. All right. Have a good night, everybody.